Welcome into the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steven. It is time for the Week 15 wide receiver rankings. That's right, a lot of us are in playoff time. I will do Week 18 for those of you who have your championship a week later than most leagues. Just a heads up on that. Couple of notes. There's a lot to get through today, so I'm just gonna be moving through things as quickly as I can. But Thursday Night Football, I go live 2 hours prior to kickoff. Saturday, we have games this Saturday. I will be going live 2 hours prior to the first game for kickoff then. Friday, I might not do my normal Saturday video since we have games on there, which is to update the rankings in a video. I am probably going to end up going live Friday evening instead for any of your questions. While doing that, I will also go through and update my rankings while available, have those up on the screen, etc. You can always find my rankings up on the website, www.thefforge.com. Please don't forget to drop a like. That always really helps a lot with the channel. And feel free to ask any questions in the comments. Of course, I'm usually pretty good about responding to those, usually, hopefully, pretty quickly. And you can see my projections on the screen, and we'll go through the order that I have them ranked, not projected. And yeah, that is it. We'll go through them in tiers. Let's recap how I did last week with my loves, my fades, as well as how I did with my DFS buys. You can find my DFS buys for this week for the wide receiver position at the end of this video. And last week, how did I do? Well, for a bottom-of-the-barrel / big tournament long shot, I gave you the Green Bay Packers' Dontavian Wicks at $3,800, went against the New York Giants. He had 6 targets, finished 75th, but he got injured in the game. For the most part, based on his usage while he was in the game, seems like that was worth a shot, just didn't end up coming through, and the Packers were just a little bit off. Things weren't... Jordan Love was off, most of all. So, unfortunately, it didn't work. I also said that I would be taking a shot on... I said, give me Michael Pittman at $7,300, DJ Moore at $6,500. Pittman finished 10th on the week. DJ Moore finished 3rd on the week. Full PPR scoring for DK, of course. And so, good job there. Those two paid off. And I gave you a contrarian play of Keenan Allen at $8,600. Figured that he probably wouldn't receive a lot of play. And he finished 26th on the week. So, you know, we took a shot. It didn't work. And, of course, his quarterback also got injured in the game, so that didn't help. Then for my Love'ems last week, I gave you DK Metcalf, Rashee Rice, and Brandon Cooks. DK Metcalf finished 18th on the week, probably a little bit lower than where I had him ranked. So I wouldn't say that he paid off, but he did all right for you. He came through and didn't kill your lineup or anything like that. Rashee Rice definitely came through, finishing 12th on the week. And then Brandon Cooks, unfortunately, finished 52nd in the week. Luckily, thank God, I don't think I had a lot of questions with, on Sunday with people having Brandon Cooks amongst other wide receivers to pick from. Maybe I picked him for 1 or 2 lineups, but overall, I know I was picking the other guys over Brandon Cooks. So, luckily, I don't think a whole lot of you ended up playing him that came through and asked questions on that. Then for my fades, I gave you Chris Olave, Gabe Davis, and Josh Downs. Chris Olave finished 26th on the week. We're going to count that as a victory given where he was ranked. I think I was pretty much right on with him. Gabe Davis gave you a big old goose egg, so obviously nailed that fade. And Josh Downs finished 52nd on the week, so good job with the fades last week. I'm going to say now let's get on to those the rankings this week. So as I said at the top, we are going to fly through this as quickly as possible, so I'm just going to be really sticking to my notes as much as possible. These are my must-start wide receivers this week. My first tier starts off at my wide receiver 1, going to be CeeDee Lamb this week, followed by A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill. Really, really tough matchup, hampered by the ankle injury, quite possibly. Just a couple of concerns there, but at the same time, it's Tyreek Hill, so you're not going to be sitting him if he's playing. Monter St. Brown, Michael Pittman also making it into this tier. So, yeah, there we go. That's the first tier. You're starting those guys. No question. And you're probably going to be starting these guys as well. But we'll start to talk about them a little bit here. Starting off at my wide receiver 6, I have Deebo Samuel, who has surpassed Brandon Ayuk on the season. My EV quarterback, wide receiver 8 now compared to Ayuk, who is the EV wide receiver 10. EV equalized value is very similar to average fantasy points per week. However, it does factor in how consistently those points came through to you. That's as simple as it gets. If Justin Jefferson is a go, and that is an if at this point in time, I'm leaning towards the fact that he will be going. That's why I have him ranked, and I'm going to trust that Mullins can get the ball into his hands, and I'm going to trust the talent of Justin Jefferson from there, and just getting open for Mullins to get the ball into his hands to come through. And so I do trust the floor enough with Justin Jefferson that this is where I have him ranked. If you don't trust it, fair enough. Totally understandable. Then DK Metcalf at wide receiver 8, and I'm ranking him as if Geno Smith is starting. Of course, if Geno Smith is out, that will affect the rankings of these Seattle wide receivers. But otherwise, even if going up against Philadelphia, really, really good matchup, by far and away the best wide receiver matchup that there is in the league. And I trust that, once again, assuming Geno's the quarterback, that he could take advantage, and DK is the most likely recipient to help him take advantage of this matchup. Then Mike Evans and Stephon Diggs here, my wide receivers 9 and 10. Going to group them a little bit together because both are in very tough matchups. Going up against Green Bay for Mike Evans, Stephon Diggs, Dallas. Both of those matchups are just outside of being the 5 worst matchups for wide receivers. When it comes to Mike Evans, I trust him a little more based on not only how he has performed as of late compared to Stephon Diggs, but also how he has performed on the entirety of the season. Going back to my EV rankings for these guys, Mike Evans, EV wide receiver 7 on the week, whereas Stephon Diggs has fallen to EV wide receiver 11 on the season, not on the week. And then Stephon Diggs, I think that he has a ceiling shot here in this matchup that could become a shootout between them and Dallas. So I'm still going to trust Stephon Diggs and get him out there, do like the upside there. Then wide receivers 11 and 12, we've got Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua back-to-back there, and I finally gave up on Kupp last week, and then he comes back with a vengeance. And we're back to square one here where we were just a few weeks ago, where I gotta rank Cooper Kupp ahead of Puka Nacua, despite where they've what they've accomplished this season, just due to Cooper Kupp's talent level and his past production. Now, when we look at these 3 wide receivers, including Brandon Ayuk, I have them all on my fantasy roster. And so Puka, I knew that I was planning on playing him over Ayuk this week, purely because of the matchup. But then it's like, well, I'm putting Cooper Kupp up ahead of Puka Nacua. So for me, with this matchup, despite the fact that Brandon Ayuk is in a good matchup against Arizona, these Los Angeles wide receivers are in an amazing matchup against Washington. That Washington is by far and away the second best wide receiver matchup. There's a disparity between them and Philadelphia, and there's a disparity between them and the rest of the field lower than. So I'm in a 2-week matchup. That's how we do our playoffs in my league. Just 4 teams make it, and then it's over 4 weeks. And I started off last week going up against the number 1 team in the league, for scoring last week. So I am in a hole. My team did well. I think I was the 4th highest scoring team. So it didn't do terrible, but I am in a hole now. And frankly, they do have a better team than me. But their team is heavily reliant on San Francisco. So, that might go up against exactly what I'm going to say. Basically, I'm hoping that Brandon Ayuk can be the guy in San Francisco that has the big day, and the others don't, or at least 2 of his 3 San Francisco guys don't, if he's going to end up playing all 3 of them again. Because last week, all 3 of them outscored Ayuk, so that was fun. George Kittle, the running back, and the other wide receiver, Debo there. So, that didn't work out well, but I'm in a hole. I need upside, so what I'm going to end up doing is playing Cooper Kupp and Brandon Ayuk. Unfortunately, Puka's going to have to sit. Just letting you know that little story, because sometimes you just have to go against the rankings because of certain factors. You might need a ceiling. You might need to diversify your portfolio on the week in order to try to get, it's less likely that both Puka and Kupp have huge games, I believe, than it is that one of them has a big game and Brandon Ayuk. And I have Cooper Kupp ranked higher. So there you go. Just wanted to get that little story out there. Then DJ Moore I have ranked 14th, and Jamar Chase in at wide receiver 15. And for these 2, you're still almost certainly going to be playing them despite some of the concerns for both of them, looking at the matchups there. I could have faded Evans, Diggs, and DJ Moore easily this week, but I think that you have to start these guys, so I decided not to fade them, but I just want to at least make those concerns known. Let's move on to my 3rd tier, a little bit of a smaller tier here. I actually like the wide receivers this week. First week in several weeks, they've been frustrating me as of late, so all in all, I feel pretty confident with my rankings this week, and you will see that the tiers are a little bit smaller, more precise than they have been as of late. So starting off at wide receiver 16 for my 3rd tier, we have Chris Olave, and I'll take the safe floor and a good matchup for him going up against the New York Giants. He's already a high floor guy. New York Giants are a good matchup for floors especially. So I'll just take that safety net and go with it and hope that it works out. And in terms of Devonta Smith, I'll go for the ceiling here in what could be a competitive game between Philadelphia and Seattle as I see it. Then Devonta Adams here at wide receiver 18, and I'm going to trust that AOC can get the ball into Devonta Adams' hands in a matchup where I don't think the Chargers have the talent to contain Devonta Adams and make those, that connection be tough to be had. Then at wide receiver 19, we have Keenan Allen, my first fade of the week here, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. And Easton Stick has been sitting and learning for many years here. He is technically a veteran at this point in his career. And I think you have to trust that he'll get the ball into the hands of his best wide receiver, Keenan Allen. He's obviously a bust candidate, however, Keenan Allen that is. And I understand if you don't want to take that risk in such a big matchup this week. Very understandable. If you come to me on Saturday and you ask me who to start between like Keenan Allen and Garrett Wilson, who I obviously have ranked lower, you're almost certainly going to hear me say Keenan Allen, assuming I still have him ranked above Garrett Wilson at that point in time. And sometimes you just have to make the decision on your own, opposed to rankings. And that is part of the purpose of these fade and love tags that I have for these guys, to give you the courage to follow your gut. If your gut's telling you, I don't want to trust Keenan Allen this week, maybe me saying, yeah, man, he is a big bust candidate. He is a risk. I am fading him this week. Once again, you come and you ask me who to start, I'm going to end up saying Keenan Allen. I do have him ranked higher. So just keep that in mind with everything, with my loves, my fades. This is to help you follow whatever you're thinking, to say, yes, I don't disagree with that, despite my ranking, despite the average experts ranking on these guys. There's something that we're concerned about, or there's something that we're loving this week. That's all. Just wanted to get that out there into the world. Now, wide receiver 20, we've got Courtland Sutton. And as has been the case all season long for Courtland Sutton, you don't trust the floor. I mean, look at it. It's been like this all season long. He has his low end has not matched who he's been ranked around, but he continues to come through, and he's going up against Detroit this week. They can't cover incredibly well. So it's just another one of these matchups where you have to think that the touchdown streak can continue and that he can come through for you yet again. Then DeAndre Hopkins in at wide receiver 21, and Houston is almost certainly decimated at this point in the season. It's very unfortunate, all the injuries that they're dealing with at this point in time. And I think it's just going to take a really gutsy performance by this Houston defense, which they do have the type of head coach that could probably get that out of them, in order to limit Tennessee on defense, on offense. It's going to take a gutsy performance by the defense to limit Tennessee on offense. And Houston's offense should struggle against Tennessee's defense, almost certainly giving Tennessee's offense even more opportunities to wear this defense down as the game goes along and maybe get some of these deep shots to DeAndre Hopkins, who is coming off of a big game himself. Saw that connection be alive and well between him and Will Levis. Let's move on to my next tier, which starts at wide receiver 22, goes all the way to wide receiver 29, starts with Garrett Wilson, and Miami has been a better defense as of late, but we're going to trust the Zach Wilson connection in a game where the offensive game plan is probably going to include abandoning the run to some extent. If you were the New York Jets, I think that you want to come out in this game and get the early lead against Miami. There are two ways that you can attack a potent offense. You can try and control the ball and, control the clock, keep them off the field as much as possible. That's one way. I think in this game, what the New York Jets want to do is trust that their defense can limit this Miami offense game long, and also put their defense in a situation where they can pin their ears back and go after Tua, disrupt things, and hopefully create some turnovers. And by in order to do that, you're going to need to take the lead early. And I think that that's what you're going to do. If you're the New York Jets, you're going to come out passing a lot similar to the game plan that we ended up seeing last week. Is I think the way to go. And so Garrett Wilson, of course, should thrive if that is the game plan. Then at wide receiver 23, 24, 25, look at that. 3 loves in a row. How crazy is that? So we've got Jaden Reed, assuming that there is no Christian Watson or Dontavian Wicks this week. Especially Christian Watson, but also Dontavian Wicks has been a solid target getter game in and game out for some time now. Then I'm going to be really highly optimistic for the top 2 Green Bay wide receivers, being Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs, in this matchup against Tampa Bay, a banged up Tampa Bay, I believe, still. And so love the matchup. Jaden Reed has established himself as the better fantasy option, but it is not by a big margin. The margin between Jaden Reed and Romeo Doubs, I mean, you can look at the projections, fractions of a point in the projections, and ultimately, I think they're essentially back-to-back, yet we've got a group of guys in between them, and that just goes to show you how tight this tier really is, and I don't... it's just how they ended up getting ranked. And at wide receiver 24, we have Zay Flowers. And what do we want in order to find success for Zay Flowers? How does he best find success based on how they've used him this entirety of the season? We need a lot of targets. He is a low ADOT guy. And so, wouldn't you know that Jacksonville, their opponent, allows the second most pass attempts per game in the league on the entirety of the season. So I do think that this matchup works nicely for Zay Flowers. I do also think it works nicely for OBJ, and you will be seeing him in this video as I went as deep as I could for the wide receivers. Now at wide receiver 25, we've got Rashee Rice, and New England is a plus matchup for receivers, and I think that Kansas City is going to take it to the air against them. I don't think they're going to try to establish a run against New England. I think they're going to try to jumpstart this passing offense, and in order to, most likely outside of their tight end, of course, Travis Kelce, Rashee Rice should be the other guy to benefit the most from that kind of game plan. So I like him a lot. In fact, I love him this week. Then we go to a fade in Jalen Waddle going up against the New York Jets. It's a really tough matchup. It's very much that simple. At wide receiver 27, we've got Calvin Ridley going up against Baltimore. And the targets were there last week with Christian Kirk out, as I anticipated. The thing is, it didn't really come through for Calvin Ridley. Didn't catch a whole lot of them. Things didn't work out. I am expecting those targets to continue, and hopefully they can find pay dirt this time around. The issue is, going up against Baltimore, it is one of the tougher matchups, even though they had a little bit last week in the passing game, as well as on the ground. But on the season, a very tough matchup. So I would have Calvin Ridley ranked higher if it weren't for the tough matchup, because I think that target share is pretty much locked in. Then Tyler Lockett at wide receiver 28, and he's in the number one wide receiver matchup going up against Philly. So, a lot of upside there for him. Romeo Doubs at wide receiver 29, and as I said, the difference between my starting confidence between Jaden Reed and himself is very slim. So I'm still very optimistic about Romeo Doubs and his chances to have a good week here against Tampa Bay. Let's move on to my next tier of wide receivers, going from wide receiver 29 through 36. And to kick this off, we have Amari Cooper, Drake London back-to-back here. Drake London's going to be a fade for me, but I feel pretty similar about how these two are going to find success this week. I'm not overly confident about either one of them. I'm a little bit concerned about them, in fact, and as to how many targets that they're going to get, and they're going to have to be efficient on those targets. Chicago, however, is the better matchup for the two on the season for Cooper Kupp compared to Carolina for Drake London, although not by a mile, and Chicago has been playing better as of for some time now. The bust alert, however, is going to end up going on Drake London here. Very concerned about him busting this week after a really nice, promising week last week. For the first time in several weeks, I'm kind of liking the wide receivers, so it wasn't easy for me to come up with my final fade of the week, but I landed on Drake London because he's going to have to be hyper efficient on what should be a low amount of targets, and Atlanta should be able to run all over Carolina. Then we've got Adam Thielen and Brandon Cooks, comparing those two, comparing and contrasting. It's really simple here. If you want the better floor, you're going to go with Adam Thielen, who has been fine as of late. He hasn't lived up to, a lot of times where I've been ranking him, but he has still been serviceable as a flex option for sure. And Brandon Cooks is going to be your guy. If you're going for a ceiling going up against Buffalo, there could be a shootout. Probably Buffalo's a little bit better equipped than Philadelphia was last week to limit CeeDee Lamb and maybe force them to spread the ball around a little bit more on offense, and maybe Brandon Cooks can be the recipient of that. So do like the upside from Brandon Cooks, but if you want to save for floor, I would just go with Adam Thielen still. Then we've got Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, OBJ, and I think that they're all solid plays to finish off this tier at wide receiver 36, but there are more that we can talk about. We've got going down to about 49 wide receivers in this video. So wide receivers 37 through 45 are my next tier. We're not going to talk about all of them, but Jordan Addison and Noah Brown here. So I'm pretty close to the ECR on these two. That's why we're kind of just going to pass over them. Jacoby Myers, T. Higgins, Jordan Addison, Noah Brown, Marquise Brown, Chris Godwin, George Pickens, Curtis Samuel and Jackson Smith and Jigma wraps up that tier. So like I said, Jordan Addison, Noah Brown, a little bit about them. I'm optimistic for both of them, but that's what it is. It's optimism. I think that Mullins gives Addison a better shot at doing something again, especially if Jefferson is playing. I like Mullins a little bit better for Jordan Addison as a receiver. And then as far as Noah Brown goes, I assume that he will be the wide receiver one this week unless we get some sort of, Nico Collins coming back or something. I don't know that he can actually take advantage of being a wide receiver one, but Tennessee does not have a very good secondary, so there is a chance there's going to be an opportunity. He should get targeted fairly heavily enough to have a big game, and so I am willing to take that risk once again against Tennessee, specifically a solid matchup for him. Then we got Marquise Brown and Chris Godwin, and it's hard to see the ceiling for these two in this matchup. That's kind of why I've got Jordan Addison, Noah Brown ahead of them. Understand it if you want to flip those guys around and whatnot, change their order, perfectly fine. But I just don't really see any kind of ceiling for Marquise Brown going up against San Francisco, Chris Godwin going up against Green Bay. Tough matchups. And then George Pickens, the spread between him via the ECR and Deontay Johnson is actually much larger than what I have in my rankings. Deontay Johnson is ranked 29th currently via ECR, so 5 spots higher than where I currently have him. And George Pickens is ranked 49th via the ECR, so 6 spots lower than where I currently have him ranked. I don't understand that chasm. You can see even by the projections, they're pretty darn close projection-wise. Am I just missing something? Is George Pickens injured, or did I forget about that? Let me know if I am missing something here, please. But I don't understand that. To me, I think they're pretty close overall in chances of, as far as their odds of having a good game here against Indianapolis. I don't hate either one of them. Obviously, I do like Deontay Johnson more, though. Then Curtis Samuel, Jackson Smith, and Jigba to wrap this tier up. Given the matchups, I'll roll with either one of them quite happily with positive vibes going into the week. Shiny hope, let's call it. Positive vibes. I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's move on to my final tier here, wide receivers 46 through 49. It's Gabe Davis, Josh Downs, Zay Jones, and Parker Washington. And really, ultimately, the difference between them and Curtis Samuel, Jackson Smith, and Jigba comes down to, instead of having positive vibes, I just more so have hope. I'm hopeful that these guys could come through for me if I am starting them. And I still feel comfortable starting them. It's really once we get to this wide receiver 50 mark where I am like, gosh, I hope I'm not having to pick from them. I would still, once again, be hopeful if I'm having to put one of these 4 into my lineup. And also, just to let you know who was not ranked in this video if you didn't catch on, Nico Collins not ranked right now. Christian Watson, Rashid Shaheed, Tutu Atwell, Demario Douglas, Dontavian Wicks, Devontae Parker. Of course, especially some of these, like these two up top, they would change the rankings for other players if they do end up playing this week and getting ranked. So, where you can find my final rankings of the week. Now let's get on to my wide receiver DFS buys of the week, which I need to look up. All right, so at the bottom of the barrel for a big tournament long shot kind of guy, or once again, you're just trying to save a bunch of money at one spot, Parker Washington at $3,400 I think is a solid DFS play this week. Could see a lot of targets, and hopefully you get a touchdown on top of that, and he'll come through for you. I also said that I'm going to take a shot on Tyler Lockett, but I will say there are a lot of options around that pricing. He's at $5,400. Guys who I have ranked higher than him in my rankings, but he's also a bit of a contrarian play, so I wanted to point him out. But Romeo Doubs, good price here. Same with Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers stand out to me a little bit more highly priced. But then Jaden Reed at $4,900, less than all of these guys, or the same as Tyler Lockett there, who I have ranked higher than them as well. Very good pricing there. Rashee Rice, I'm sure, is probably still a solid price as well for you. So those loves of mine this week, good. And let's wrap it up there, please. I appreciate you all. Like, comment, subscribe. Always helps if you're still hanging around. And let's kill the playoffs and get you guys a championship. Peace out.